and welcome to my channel. So today's video comes with a bit of a disclaimer. It's not for the super sensitive or anyone with a weak stomach. This is definitely one of my more intense cases that I have gone over. It does involve the death of a child, which I know can be quite triggering to some people. So I just wanted to put this out there for respect. I will not be showing any bodies or anything like that, so don't worry about that. I just figured I would warn you guys before you dive into something without knowing what's going to happen. Today's video is on Paulette Gebara, and she was a beautiful 4-year-old girl when she ended up passing away. She did not have necessarily the easiest life. She was actually born at 25 weeks, which, if none of you know, 24 weeks is usually considered viability in a sense of they will potentially survive. Anything before that, usually it's almost a guaranteed death. So it was a huge deal. The doctors did not believe she would survive, but she somehow defeated all of the odds and she ended up surviving. But it caused a lot of issues for her along her life. Her parents were told she would never walk, that she wouldn't be able to talk, and she ended up once again proving everyone wrong. She could walk, not well, and it had to be with a lot of assistance. She could say things like mom, dad, things like that, but she was definitely disabled and required a lot of attention. She had to be on a lot of expensive medications and she had to go to therapy a lot, physical therapy, things like that to keep her walking so she didn't regress backwards. It was just one of those situations where she needed help for essentially everything and she could not have survived ever on her own, so she almost fully relied on someone else 98% of the time. The weekend she went missing, her and her father and her 7-year-old sister all went on a weekend trip, and her mother as well went on a trip, but she went on a separate trip to Cabos with her friend, and they all ended up coming back home that Sunday, and that was the last time anyone would have seen her before she was found dead. So that night, it was March 21st of 2010, they all arrived home pretty late at night. It was about 9 p.m. and the mother specifically remembered putting her daughter to bed, kissing her goodnight, the whole entire nighttime routine that most mothers have with their children, and unfortunately, that was the last time her mother ever saw her. Well, Mauricio, the father, and Lizette, the mother, were pretty well off. They lived in a very nice apartment and they were able to hire 2 nannies that could help take care of the girls. They cleaned up the house, took care of pretty much everything while the parents were away at work. The nannies were sisters, and the next morning, they got the older sister, the 7-year-old, ready for school. They got her dressed, fed her, took her to her bus stop, and then that was around 7 a.m. And then around 8 a.m., they went to go wake up Paulette. She was due to go to kindergarten and they usually just let her sleep while they finished everything up, except when they got into her room, she was nowhere to be found, which is the first very alarming thing to me. This girl could not move anywhere on her own. This girl could not stand up and walk herself somewhere on her own. It's not something she would have attempted to do. She already, had spent the whole 4 years of her life, used to having to be helped places, so it's not like she could have just gotten up and walked away. So before completely panicking, the nannies looked everywhere. They looked under the bed, in her bathroom, searched her whole entire room, the whole entire house, her sister's bedroom, parents' bedroom. And then when they didn't find her anywhere in the house, they, really kicked into high gear of trying to figure out where Paulette was, and they searched the entire building. They knocked on neighbors' doors, asking if anyone had seen her. They asked the security guards, and when they could not find her anywhere, they immediately panicked and called the parents, said, "Your daughter is missing, please come home, we need your help." Forensics team was immediately called out to the house, and this is when the searches began, and this is when a lot of the evidence ends up very muddied, and this case is going to absolutely infuriate you guys. There was absolutely no struggle, no sign of forced entry. It looked as if she just disappeared. So in this time frame, the parents really used their connections and their money to get the word out. They had billboards everywhere. They hung like big sheets on overpasses saying, "Where is my daughter? Have you seen her?" with her picture plastered everywhere. They did multiple interviews, some even inside the bedroom, and basically pleaded with anyone. The mother immediately, first off, said that it was something to do with a kidnapping, but everyone wasn't quite sure how to feel about that because there was no ransom note. There wasn't really any reason why someone would have wanted to take her. They weren't trying to get anything out of it, so that was almost ruled out immediately. The parents said she was an angel child. She was so incredibly sweet. You know, she never cried, never threw tantrums, never got upset, never caused them any issues. She was just a good little girl. The mother even told the police and different interviewers that their dogs never made any noises. There were no bizarre sounds during the nighttime, so she didn't know how anyone could have possibly gotten into their apartment to take her, and she said her alert was not triggered at all. So on the 27th, which was just a few short days after she went missing, Lizette, the mother, decided to start allowing people into the home for interviews, which to me is yet again another big red flag that could potentially be a crime scene, and the police never really treated it as one. Apparently they were letting all of the police officers use her restroom if they needed to go. There were hundreds of people walking in and out, and then once again, like I just said, on the 27th, multiple people were allowed into the home, camera crews, everything, so she could do interviews. And she sat on her daughter's bed and, you know, talked about her daughter. Then she started displaying some very bizarre behavior in some of these interviews. She was quoted saying that even if she lost Paulette, she still had her other daughter. And this is kind of where people started to really start thinking as to what possibly happened to Paulette. And from here on, this entire case just starts to totally break down. After the police did thorough investigations and both of the parents kind of started acting bizarrely and the nannies seemed to be convinced that the parents had something to do with it, police came up with one conclusion. Either the parents or the nannies had to have had something to do with her disappearance. That's when they found out that the parents had been lying from the beginning. The things really started to crumble for the parents. They found out that the parents weren't even the ones to have searched for Paulette, that the nannies were the ones who had searched for them. Once they questioned the nannies a little bit, they got the true story on what really had happened that morning that Paulette disappeared. Nannies came out with a statement that said that they had searched the entire building for Paulette, and when they came back, that Lizette was actually sitting there smoking a cigarette, drinking a cup of coffee, completely calm, and that Mauricio was doing the same, just kind of casually walking around the apartment, like would open a closet every here and there, but neither one of them really seemed concerned that their daughter was missing. At least they weren't showing it. And once again, everyone handles everything differently, so this could have very well been their way of coping. They also found out that the parents were not even the ones to have called the police. Mauricio called his sister and mentioned the fact that Paulette was gone, and his sister immediately panicked, and she actually ended up calling the police herself because she thought something was wrong. So it was also said by the nannies that there were some financial struggles, that the family could no longer afford to live in the apartment building they were living in, and police started wondering if that's why Lizette was so set on the fact that it was a kidnapping. Maybe she wanted the ransom money to herself. I'll get into it later when I get into the theories, but that was another thing that really threw the police off. Marriage also was apparently falling apart. They fought all the time. And then it came to light that the mother possibly wasn't on this trip to Cabos with her friend, but instead with a lover. So at this point, the parents are totally being put in a spotlight, and they are really being put through the ringer, and things are starting to come to light that are making them look extremely suspicious. So then on March 30th, both the parents and both the nannies were put into a hotel, I'm pretty sure it was. They were placed in some sort of detention, essentially, where they were questioned thoroughly, and this is where things became even more suspicious. A psychologist and different investigators were there questioning the parents, and Lizette seemed to have some sort of personality disorder. She almost lacked total empathy, is the way they described it. And that's basically lacking, you know, feeling bad for someone or sympathizing with someone, like actually feeling for what someone else is going through. And she seemed to completely lack it. She was defensive, she was anxious, she was angry, she was lashing out at the police, which could be signs of something, but because I like to be fair on all sides, that could also be signs that she was just angry, that she was possibly becoming a suspect in this case. The public at this point kind of attacked Lizette. The public was angry, and they all, for the most part, thought that she had something to do with it. Everyone said that she seemed very cold, that she did not show any emotions towards her daughter, and that she seemed more concerned about getting these interviews out and getting her face out there than actually finding her daughter. When Mauricio went through this interview, he also seemed very evasive. He seemed like he didn't want to say much about the case, didn't want to say much about what happened surrounding when she disappeared, and he also seemed very anxious. But once again, to me, if I hadn't done nothing wrong and I was brought somewhere to be questioned by police, I would be freaking out too, just because that's kind of sometimes people's reaction to it. So that could easily show that he was just nervous. It's a scary thing to go through, or he could have possibly been uncomfortable hiding something. Then on the 31st of March, the next day, Paulette's body body was found. This is so strange to me. She was found wedged at the foot of her bed. So if this is a bed, she had a specially made bed. It was specially made by a carpenter to resemble a ship. And the frame wasn't really built with safety precautions. It was more so for the looks of it. So there was her bed itself, and then there were posts, 4 posts on the bed. And on the very end, there were little pieces that basically enabled her to wedge herself between the mattress and the posts. And that is where she was found, and she was underneath the covers. People immediately at this point 100% placed the blame on the parents. After all, there had been searches. There had been many people, there are videos of it, of all these different investigators looking under the bed, you know, pulling back covers. The lead attorney, I'm not gonna say his name right, it's I'm gonna put it right here. He actually was, you know, the one who looked under the bed. It was a big investigation. There were apparently sniffer dogs that came into the room, and once again, I think it was over 100 different police officers that entered the room. Somehow, none of them had found the body, and that led a lot of people to think that the body had not been there the entire time, which sparked a ton of theories that I will get to in the end of this video. Because when she was first found, it was immediately determined to be a homicide. But after Babaz, don't know still, after he talked to the family a little bit longer, he very suddenly changed it to accidental death. And I'm pretty sure this was before the autopsy was really even done on her. So people were very suspicious of this attorney because once again, he had been the one who had searched all around the bed, at least one of the people that had. He, you know, was apparently really close to Mauricio, and he also changed his story very quickly without much reasoning and wouldn't really give a lot of explanation. So yet again, they all became under the microscope because after this all happened, there were many more interviews where Babaz would actually totally change his story in the middle of an interview. He would give people a lot of misinformation, his stories wouldn't match anyone else's, and he almost immediately placed all the blame on Lizette without having really any evidence. So even though people were going with it, people were skeptical as to why he would come out and be saying these things without having any evidence to really suggest it. Then on April 6th, Paulette was buried. And the thing that gets to me about this is that the mother was there, and the mother was the one who held it. And for some reason, the paternal side of the family was not there. I don't know if they weren't allowed, or I'm not sure. I know their marriage was kind of on the rocks at that moment, but this is a very important time, so I find it very strange that the mother didn't really include that side of the family. Now things are about to get really he said, she said. So according to a bunch of people, the police did not handle the case the way that they said they did. They claimed they came in, they searched the entire room and the entire house the morning she went missing, but it turned out that they didn't actually search everywhere at first. Alfredo Castillo, who was an attorney and investigator on the case, apparently allowed everyone in, only allowed them to look at possible force of entry or signs of struggle, and then immediately called off the search. It did not close the crime scene. You know, at this point they didn't know what had happened, but they were allowing hundreds upon hundreds of people to walk through the room, touch things, mess with things, and pretty much any evidence that would have been there had been completely contaminated. So Babaz stated that his theory was that she kind of snaked down her bed and ended up stuck where she was found, and the reasoning no one found her is because she cannot move very well to get herself out. This to me is where I have kind of like a hang up. I put a picture right here of what her bed looked like the morning that they came to try to figure out where she had gone. Being a girl who could not move very well on her own or walk very well on her own, she somehow slid down there and then, you know, totally turned herself perpendicular to how she'd originally been, and then rolled down in there and didn't untuck any of those blankets, or, you know, I think that would be something difficult for me to even do. And I have full capability of using my body to its fullest, and I probably would knock half the sheets and covers off the bed. So I find it very strange that she somehow snaked down that bed. To me, it looks like they made it as if it were like a hotel bed, and I know most of you probably stayed in a hotel before. I mean, those sheets are tucked in tight down there, so I don't understand how there could have even been really space for her to do that. you know, a lot of theories suggest that she was there the entire time and the blankets were just kind of masking her odor. But yet again, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this, and I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. In this picture, I kind of see where her body could have possibly been. She was a small 4-year-old girl, so it's kind of hard to tell, but I don't know. It's just, I don't see how she could have put herself in that position with the disabilities that she did have. This is where we come into the real theories. First theory is that Lizette killed her daughter. So Lizette, lacking empathy and not really having the ability to be very affectionate with her children, it's difficult. I am very familiar with people with disabilities. My uncle has Down syndrome. My grandparents had a business where they helped the mentally and physically handicapped, something that I've been surrounded by my entire life. And I know that it can be extremely difficult to deal with, especially if you are not a very empathetic or caring person, like they say her mother was. So the theory is that she had just kind of had enough, that she was very overwhelmed on top of her financial problems, on top of her, you know, marriage issues. She really just couldn't deal with Paulette. And they're saying she possibly killed her daughter and then hid her body somewhere in the house until she figured out what to do with it. People think it's very possible that she hid her in an air duct, or there's a huge possibility that she hid her in the elevator shaft. There was a neighbor that came forward and said that there was a very strange bump in the elevator while you were riding it that had not been there before and magically appeared around the time that Paulette went missing. Her daughter had absolutely no way of getting out of any situation that her mother could have possibly put her in. She could not walk on her own. So if her mother wanted to get rid of her, it would have been fairly easy to do that without it being detected and without being worried about her running off and saying something, because on top of not being able to walk alone, she couldn't talk to anyone. Next theory, I don't necessarily believe very much, but I thought I would add it because I try to add everything I possibly can, and that's that Paulette's sister killed her. This one is actually heartbreaking. It's not in a sense of she purposely did it, but the parents were known for fighting, and you know, being that the mother could have possibly been away on vacation with another lover, maybe Mauricio found out, he had an idea that that's what was going on, and that could have possibly triggered a fight. Being a child and hearing screaming like that, it's very possible that Paulette could have been extremely upset over her parents fighting. She could have been screaming and crying. And once again, being sisters, you know, I know my relationship with my sister growing up, you want to protect each other, and the theory is that her sister came in and was trying to calm her down and quiet her so that the parents didn't get more angry, and accidentally suffocated her. And the parents wanted to cover it up because, you know, they didn't want their daughter to be seen as a murderer. This theory is a staged kidnapping. As I said before, Lizette and Mauricio were actually struggling a lot financially. They could not keep their apartment for very much longer. They were paying a ton of medical bills for Paulette. So the theory is that they decided to hide her, that they decided to put her somewhere, kind of like the first theory, in like a duct, an air duct, or somewhere where no one would really go to look for her. And once again, because she couldn't walk or talk to anyone, she wasn't able to get herself out of that situation. So they could go to sleep at night, strangely enough, I know, knowing that she wouldn't be able to come out and say that's what happened to her. The idea is that they possibly wanted to get some sort of money out of this, whether it be from her grandparents or from the public. You know, a lot of people in these situations really want to reach out to these families and help them. GoFundMes are set, you know, different people donate, and you can make a lot of money, unfortunately, off something like that. And so the idea was that they basically set this all up, and then once it kind of became a lot bigger than they ever anticipated, they panicked, which would almost explain a lot of their erratic behavior. They were very calm at first, and maybe that's because they knew that she was fine and they were just kind of waiting for this to blow over and they could get their money and be done with it. And then, you know, once it started becoming a longer process and more people started becoming involved and it became a bigger ordeal, they panicked, and that's when they got angry and anxious and nervous and evasive. So I totally see that being a possibility. And when they went back to go get Paulette, they ended up leaving her for a lot longer than anticipated, and she passed away. So they staged her death. And that same theory goes with the first one of her mother killing her. You know, it was all staged. And a lot of people believe those two theories the most out of all of them, because there's no way that many people and sniffer dogs would have been all in and out of that room and no one noticed her. I mean, they were patting down the bed, they were lifting up the mattress, looking under the bed, they brought the sniffer dogs in, and the idea that her body could have been there that entire time and nobody found her. There's other people who think that maybe there was an accident before Mauricio and the two daughters even came back from their trip, that she possibly passed away there or had some sort of accident, and because they were so panicked, they just decided to stage it when she got back. Mauricio was very, very close with the attorney, and he potentially could have covered up anything that he wanted. And once again, as I said before, they had a lot of connections and a lot of, you know, people higher up that they could have influenced to sway the story different ways. And the reason why people believe this the most is that Baba has changed his story so much, and he immediately threatened Lizette. He immediately put the blame at them, and he ended up actually resigning after this case. He was forced to stop doing any sort of interviews because he was giving such misinformation, and then he was just not handling the case properly at all. So that leads me to another theory, that maybe she was there the entire time, but the investigation just was mishandled. This would not be the first time that we've seen something like this. This would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form. From some of the claims that they just let all these people come into this crime scene, it's very possible that they just didn't handle it right. It's very possible that they didn't do half the things that they claimed they did, and in that case, it's also very possible that she was there the entire time and they just missed it. There is footage actually of her being found. I am not putting it in here. It was very difficult, very difficult to watch. I will have it linked down below if any of you guys want to watch it, but I'm just warning you now. And there was a lot of what appeared to be blood on the sheets surrounding her, so a lot of people think she was killed. The person who found her, the coroner, actually was quoted saying in the video, they beat her to death. But to me and to a lot of people so far that I've seen, this could easily be decomp. It might not be blood. You know, there's a lot of things that happen to your body, and it's a lot of gross things that I don't really want to go into. And that's easily what that could have been. But she had no wounds on her body from the autopsy report. There was, you know, nothing to really show that she had been like beaten or stabbed or shot or, you know, anything like that. No like strangulation. She just suffocated. When it comes to the theories of the parents possibly moving her body, I don't know. The only thing that I question about this is, if she had been hidden somewhere for 9 days without anyone noticing her, I don't think they would really go through the trouble of moving her, because that's just another place where they could slip up. However, at the same exact time, if they are, you know, wanting to get the attention off them, if they are wanting to make sure there's an ending to this story and an ending to this case, they wanted to make sure she was found eventually, and she was found in a way where it looked like an accident. So while I do find it difficult to understand why they would go to the trouble of moving her when clearly where they were possibly hiding her before was doing just fine of a job at keeping her concealed, I could totally see them wanting to move her to finally end the story, to have it all over with, especially if it blew into something they weren't expecting. However, keep in mind, this is all speculation on theories. There is nothing really 100% suggesting that they had something to do with it. This has been closed, this case is done, and it was considered accidental. There were reenactments done of the nannies making the bed, and a lot of people for some reason think that these reenactments were done before her body was found, and this is a lot of people's strong reasoning for why I think that she was placed there after the fact. But I just want to clear up that all of these reenactments were done afterwards. They were not done before. There would be no reasoning for them to be done before. It was done to see how the bed was made, to see if she could have slid down, to see all the different things surrounding how she was found. So for anyone who has heard the story and thinks that, just be aware that those reenactments were done afterwards. People thought there's no way that they didn't find her body. Like, there's no way she was there if they did these reenactments. But it's because she'd already been found at this point. Yet again, I have another issue with these reenactments though. It appeared to me, and I could be wrong, to be the same bedding on her bed. So does that mean that they took potential evidence and washed it just for reenactment? Did they have an extra set? I don't know, to me that does seem a little bit strange, but once again, they could have easily had an extra set. Another thing kind of floating around, there was an interview with the mother before Paulette was found where there was a set of pajamas on the bed, and those pajamas appear to be the exact same pajamas Paulette was found in. You can only see the pajamas for a split second, and if I can find a good video on it, I will insert it here. But there was a pair of pajamas. They were green pants, greenish purple pants. They had reindeer on them and then a green top, and they were folded neatly at the end of Paulette's bed. And later on, this is the pair of pajamas she was wearing. My only issue with this as well is, why would the mother have changed her outfit? I mean, to me, that's just, once again, like the other theories, potentially too much work and too much of a chance for something to go wrong. So I don't know what to believe about that theory. She could have easily had a matching set for the older sister just to show what she was wearing the last time she was seen. So that could easily be discredited as well. You know, this could have easily been an accident, or it could have just easily been staged. To me, there's so much evidence supporting both sides that I don't really know what kind of opinion to have about this. However, having my own children, I do know how dangerous furniture can be. And I know to a lot of people that sounds crazy, but accidents happen a lot more frequently than we think. Really freak accidents with furniture. My only hang up on this story is that, how did that many people not notice a body in the room? I mean, it said there were over 100 police officers, sniffer dogs, the family was all there. I mean, people slept in this bed and somehow not a single person noticed. I mean, it makes your skin crawl. Her mother sat on that bed and gave interviews, multiple interviews, and I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me. So let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know if you've seen any other theories. I will link as much as I can down below of where I got my information. However, a lot of it I translated from Spanish to English, so you might not understand it. I will also link the video down below of when they found her. Yet again, it's very disturbing and difficult to watch, so just prepare yourself if you are going to watch it. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope some of you have never heard this story before. I first saw it when Bella Fiore did it, and I just remember feeling this terrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. And you know, the more I researched into it, the more information I found that just made me find this case super unbelievable. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out all of my social media sites. I talk to you guys on there all the time, and I update you guys on when videos will be up, when exactly they go live. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you're immediately notified when I post a new video every Wednesday and Saturday. And lastly, do not forget to subscribe. We are growing like crazy. I just hit 35K today and I'm about to hit 36K. It's madness, but I could not be more thankful that there's this many people out there who have such a big heart, and I'm super appreciative of it, and I love each and every one of you. And on that note, I'm going to go now, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.